This video is about the decline and fall of the Orion correlation theory. Greetings, my name is Stephen Myers, and I am the founder of the Pharaoh's Pump Foundation. This video, produced here at our nonprofit foundation's facility in Studio B, is titled The Decline and Fall of the Orion Correlation Theory. I know, that is quite a title. I wish I could take credit for such a provoking title to this video, but the credit goes to my good friend Harley. He's quite creative, and he's actually helping out with this video over there in the control booth. So if things get out of control, it's Harley's fault. I know, that's a big responsibility, but hang in there, Harley. I know you can do it. Yes, the title of this video is quite provocative, and we will explore the subject of the decline and fall of the Orion correlation theory and why this is happening. Before we discuss the decline and fall of the Orion correlation theory in particular, we need to take a look at correlation theories in general to get a historical perspective on the life cycle these theories that are based on correlations have. There are many correlation theories out there. We will begin with an examination of just a few other correlation theories which will help convey the reasons why the Orion correlation theory is in decline and will fail. All correlation theories have many things in common. One thing that all correlation theories have in common is their life cycle. The life cycle of correlation theories is quite interesting and predictable. Typically, a correlation theory is presented by a researcher or book author, then other people become proponents of that correlation theory, and other books are written which become available, and the correlation theory becomes quite popular. Then, something unexpected to the proponents of the correlation theory occurs. The event that occurs after the correlation theory becomes popular puts the correlation theory into crisis. This pivotal event, common to all correlation theories, causes the correlation theory to lose favor with academic scholars and the general public. The result of this event is, instead of being a popular explanation of something, the correlation theory ends up on the ash heap of rejected ideas. This is the natural order of events common to all correlation theories ever presented to the general public. After the pivotal event occurs, the correlation theory loses its popularity and it experiences overwhelming rejection by both academics and the general public. Yet, no theory or idea is ever discarded by everyone on Earth. This means that all rejected correlation theories will only be embraced by a small remnant of people. These relatively few people hold tight to the rejected correlation theory, relegating the correlation theory to cult status. The Orion correlation theory is not the first correlation theory that has been offered to the general public. There are many examples to choose from that have come and gone, following the predictable life cycle of all correlation theories. To get an idea as to why the Orion correlation theory is in decline and will fail, we will first look at similar correlation theories, discovering how these follow the life cycle common to all correlation theories. This life cycle is rising popularity, leading to a common event that puts the correlation theory into crisis, and then decline and ultimately rejection. After examining several other correlation theories, we will compare that information to the Orion correlation theory to see how this correlation theory will follow the same tragic life cycle all correlation theories experience. There is a correlation theory that is based on correlations that have already followed this same predictable life cycle. This correlation theory is a wonderful example to examine because it has already completed the life cycle that all theories based on correlations will go through, and it is a correlation theory that most people have at least heard of. it will be beneficial to examine this correlation theory, which has already been very popular and has already faced the common crisis that dooms all correlation theories. Examining this already rejected correlation theory will help us understand why the Orion correlation theory will also decline in popularity and ultimately be rejected for the same reasons. Although this rejected correlation theory we will look at is known by another name, I refer to this correlation theory as the bump correlation theory. Yes, there is such a thing. It is the bump correlation theory, and its abbreviation is BCT. This theory is based on the correlations between the bumps on a person's head and the character traits these bumps indicate. The bump correlation theory was very popular. There were many proponents and authors who contended the bump correlation theory was valid and valuable. At its height of popularity, the bump correlation theory was much more popular than the Orion correlation theory ever has been or ever will be. The bump correlation theory was taught as fact not long ago in universities and colleges around the world. Book sales were high, and there were a number of well-spoken authors and speakers acting as proponents of the validity of the bump correlation theory. The bump correlation theory followed the life cycle of correlation theories that it was presented to the general public and gained enormous popularity with the population at large. Surprisingly, the bump correlation theory even was accepted in the academic realm. The BCT was taught in colleges. This is something that the Orion correlation theory will never achieve for reasons discussed later. This is important to understand. The bump correlation theory was essentially a collection of perceived correlations, but those correlations had no causation. Again, the BCT, also known as the science of phrenology, is a collection of correlations without causation. At the height of its popularity, the bump correlation theory, also known as phrenology, was faced with an event. This event caused the crisis to shake the very foundations of the bump correlation theory, just as it is now shaking the very foundations of the Orion correlation theory in present times. What? What, Harley? You are right. Yes, it seems that the proponents of the bump correlation theory didn't know that correlations without causation are a common logical fallacy and something to guard against. You're right, Harley. Before we discuss what that event was that doomed this correlation theory, let's review what phrenology, or the bump correlation theory, is. I use the present tense because the bump correlation theory still exists. It is simply rejected. Simply put, phrenology is the correlation between the bumps on a human skull and the corresponding personality characteristics these skull features correspond with. But at the height of popularity phrenology enjoyed, it was faced with an event that ultimately caused the rejection of this correlation theory. This event is common to all correlation theories and causes the decline and fall of all theories that are based on perceived correlations. The event that happened was people questioned the research methods used to come up with the correlations that are the foundation of the bump correlation theory. People examined the research techniques of the bump correlation theory and found that the correlations of phrenology were derived using flawed research procedures. To put it another way, the correlations of the bump correlation theory could not withstand the rigors of the scientific method. Phrenology, or the bump correlation theory, embraced correlations between skull features and personality traits. Yet, those correlations without causation were derived using extremely poor research methods. These poor research methods were used to conjure up correlations that were false. Everyone knows now that the correlations without causation of the science of phrenology are false. Phrenology came up with correlations that they perceived, but those correlations lacked causation. The correlation theory known as phrenology used unacceptable research methods to conjure up false correlations without causation, and these false correlations were simply logical fallacies. Because of the poor research methods used and the flawed results of that poor research was false correlations, phrenology, also known as the bump correlation theory, has been rejected, and rightly so. The event that caused the rejection was people simply examining the research methods used to come up with the false correlations without causation, which are the faulty foundation of phrenology. So, examining the flawed research techniques of the bump correlation theory was the event causing the crisis this correlation theory faced and caused the ultimate rejection of this theory. The bump correlation theory is simply a collection of fake, made-up correlations without causation. The correlations of phrenology have no causation, and these correlations are just logical fallacies. Harley, we're taping. Silence your phone. Someone's calling in on the talk show? This isn't a talk show. We're just doing a video. Take a message. What? They want to talk about correlations? Okay, patch the caller through on my phone. It's a video call? Okay, put the caller on the screen. Wow, anything can happen when we are taping live. Okay, here it comes. Thank you for calling in. Harley says that you want to talk about correlations.
Oh, stop! Please,
what is it you'd like to say?
Please leave Great Pyramid correlations without causation alone.
Harley,
stop talking
about
flawed
research
techniques used to make up fake correlations.
Hang up.
Stop talking about our...
Sorry for the interruption, but that is basically what correlation without causation believers want me to do. Correlation believers want people to leave their precious, fragile correlations without causation alone. But what happens in the life cycle of correlation theories is people find out that the made-up correlations have no causation and are logical fallacies. How phrenology, also known as the bump correlation theory, relates to the Orion correlation theory will be discussed shortly, but we will examine yet another correlation theory first that has also completed the same predictable life cycle all correlation theories, including the Orion correlation theory, will go through. Coincidentally, this next correlation theory involves the Great Pyramid. In present times, even many people who study the Great Pyramid are not really very familiar with this Great Pyramid correlation theory or realize the huge popularity that this now rejected Great Pyramid correlation theory once held. Yet, this correlation theory associated with the Great Pyramid was very popular. I can't understate that fact. Many authors wrote many thick books about this Great Pyramid correlation theory. More books about this now rejected Great Pyramid correlation theory have been written than have been written about the Orion correlation theory. But what was this already rejected Great Pyramid correlation theory about? What was the Great Pyramid in correlation with, according to the rejected correlation theory? The Great Pyramid was being compared with the Bible, and many correlations were discovered. So this correlation theory is called the biblical correlation theory. The biblical correlation theory is a large collection of many precise correlations between features of the Great Pyramid and features of the Holy Bible. Various Bible verses or biblical concepts have been compared with the Great Pyramid, resulting in numerous correlations being perceived. The Great Pyramid Bible correlations include precise correlations relating to the age of the earth, various biblical seasons or ages, the location of Jesus' birthplace, biblical prophecy, and on and on and on. There is no end to these Great Pyramid biblical correlations. The biblical correlation theory, also known as pyramidology, has many, many more precise correlations than the Orion correlation theory ever will have. It is easy now to just scoff about the biblical correlation theory and just say it is rubbish. That's easy to do with any correlation theory that has already gone through the life cycle and has already been rejected. Many Great Pyramid researchers, authors, and proponents lived and died believing the now rejected biblical correlation theory was valid. This correlation theory once enjoyed tremendous popularity, but now it resides in the ash heap of rejected ideas. But there is always a remnant of believers of any correlation theory after that theory has been rejected. Proof of this resides on the internet, which has many websites promoting the biblical correlation theory, also known as phrenology. I guess this is a valuable object lesson that some people want and need to embrace falsehoods. The Great Pyramid Bible correlations are precise and numerous. This theory was tremendously popular, yet it too faced a specific event that put the biblical correlation theory into chaos, which resulted in the rejection of this specific correlation theory. That pivotal event was people actually examining the research methods used to come up with these precise yet invalid Great Pyramid Bible correlations. It was discovered that these Great Pyramid Bible correlations were derived using very poor research techniques. These same poor research techniques were also used by phrenology. The Great Pyramid is a complex structure with many features. Let's call those features data points. The Bible is a complex document with many features. Let's call those features data points. Proponents of the biblical correlation theory used a poor research technique called cherry picking and just cherry picked unrelated data points from the Bible and the Great Pyramid to come up with a perceived correlation without causation. Even without causation, they simply said, Shazam! It's a correlation. Usually, regarding correlation without causation theories, some correlation is discovered and its validity is often somehow based on precision. But in the realm of legitimate academic research, precision does not validate a correlation. That is contrary to the flawed research methods used in correlation without causation theories. But the reality is that precision does not validate a correlation. If you think that precision validates a correlation, go to the link below. There you will find many precise correlations, like the correlation between the number of people who have drowned by falling into a pool and films Nicolas Cage appeared in. These correlations are precise, yet there is no causation, so everyone knows that the correlation is invalid, except people who embrace various correlation theories. A pattern is emerging. In all correlation theories, there is something lacking in their correlations. A correlation is not validated just because it is perceived. A correlation is not validated just because it is precise. Just because someone makes up a correlation, even a Great Pyramid correlation, does not mean it was intended by the original builders to have any significance. Just because someone makes up a precise correlation, even a Great Pyramid correlation, that does not mean it was intended by the original builders to have any significance. Just because someone sees a correlation between the bumps in a person's head and personality characteristics doesn't mean the correlation is valid. Correlations require a relevant piece of evidence that corroborates the perceived correlation. That distinct piece of evidence is called causation. Causation is what validates a correlation. Proponents in these correlation theories make up correlations, but the correlations, even though they may be precise, are without causation. Basing a correlation theory on a foundation of correlations without causation invariably leads to a rejection of the correlation theory. I know that in the here and now, the bump correlation theory, also known as phrenology, has a remnant of people who embrace these false correlations without causation. I know that in the here and now, the biblical correlation theory, also known as pyramidology, has a remnant of people who embrace these false correlations without causation. Even now, one can go on the internet and see websites with charts and graphs of pictures with lines drawn on them describing these precise but false Great Pyramid Bible correlations without causation. False ideas that result from using poor research techniques are rejected by most, but there will always be a remnant of believers who embrace falsehoods. We have seen the rejection of the bump correlation without causation theory. We have seen the rejection of the biblical correlation without causation theory. Both of these correlation theories use the same unacceptable research methods that lead to embracing correlations without causation. These theories are based on logical fallacies and were rejected because of the hopelessly flawed research methods used in these correlation without causation theories. Correlation without causation theories travel through a predictable life cycle. Both of these correlation without causation theories have gained popularity and then were faced with an event sending these correlation without causation theories into chaos, and ultimately, these flawed theories suffered rejection. Both of these correlation without causation theories were extremely popular, but these theories have faced decline, and both have suffered catastrophic failure. Their life cycle is complete. Okay, so now we are ready to discuss the Orion correlation theory and how it relates to other correlation theories that have been rejected, and how the Orion correlation theory will decline and fall. Like all correlation theories, the Orion correlation theory is essentially a collection of correlations without causation. These correlations without causation were made up using the same flawed research methods as Harley, mute your phone. We're taping here. What? Another caller? Tell him to call back. We're busy dropping truth here in Studio B at the Pharaoh's Pump Foundation. It's another caller. That's what happens when you tape live. What did you say, Harley? This caller says he has memorized all fake Great Pyramid correlations. Is that what you're saying? No, that's humanly impossible. There are so many fake Great Pyramid correlations without causation that no single cranium could possibly hold all of them. I must interview this person to see what this is all about. Sorry for the interruption, but I must find out if this is true. Patch the caller through, Harley. What? It's a video call? Okay, put him on the screen. We have to find out more about this. Okay, here he comes. Okay, sir, thank you for calling in. My call screener, Harley, over there, says that you have memorized every fake, made up Great Pyramid correlation there is. Is that so? And why would you do something as stupid as memorize fake, false Great Pyramid correlations without causation? How is it humanly possible to cram all those logical fallacies into your cranium? Dude, You don't look very good. Wow. Yuck. Cut the feed, Harley. Cut the feed. What a mess. Wow. Thank the God of fake correlations he wasn't here in Studio B when that happened. You're in charge, Harley. You would have had to clean it up. I guess the lesson is that if you cram so much worthless, fake, made up logical fallacies, like Great Pyramid correlations without causation, into your head, it just might explode. I hate it when that happens. We have a 12-step program that has helped a lot of people just like him. This 12-step program we have developed is for addicts. I'm going to brag on you now, Harley, for just a little bit. When I first met Harley, he was suffering with his addiction, but he had the courage of going through our 12-step AA program. Our 12-step program was instrumental to Harley being able to break the chains of his addiction. Our 12-step AA program is titled Alignment Anonymous. Our 12-step Alignment Anonymous program provides the tools and techniques which helped Harley understand that fake, made-up Great Pyramid correlations without causation are just plain old-fashioned logical fallacies made up by modern people using flawed research techniques. With that knowledge, Harley was able to break free from his addiction to fake Great Pyramid correlations and alignments. How's it feel, Harley, to be free from your addiction? Harley says it is such a freeing experience not having to believe those fake, made-up Great Pyramid correlations. Good for you, Harley. Now, where were we? Okay. The correlations without causation of the Orion correlation theory were derived using the same flawed research methods used by both the bump correlation theory and the biblical correlation theory. The proponents of the bump correlation theory simply cherry-pick unrelated data points of various personality traits and compare them to the bumps on people's heads. The proponents of the biblical correlation theory simply cherry-picked data points of the Great Pyramid and then compared those data points with data points in the Bible. Then they perceive some sort of a correlation or pattern between the unrelated data points and then just simply declare, Shazam! It's a correlation. Yet these fabricated correlations, even precise correlations, are lacking causation and were derived using flawed research techniques. Please watch our video titled The Flawed Research Methods of the Orion Correlation Theory, where we explore in detail the poor research method used to come up with fake correlations without causation. Check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel for that video. Although discussed in much greater detail in that video, in just basic terms, all three of the correlation theories mentioned in this video use the same logical fallacy of cherry-picking unrelated data points and conjure up a correlation without causation. These three correlation theories also contend that precision validates a correlation, which is a big red flag indicating flawed research techniques are being used, resulting in logical fallacies. And these three correlation theories embrace correlations that have no causation. In the realm of legitimate academic research, a perceived correlation does not even imply a causation. But please watch our other video describing in detail the flawed research techniques of the Orion correlation theory. So in conclusion, the Orion correlation theory is just like the bump correlation theory and the biblical correlation theory, in that all three of these correlation theories use the same flawed research methods. These flawed research methods used by these three correlation theories results in producing correlations that have no causation. All three theories are just a collection of fake correlations without causation, produced using poor research techniques. The bump correlation theory, also known as phrenology, and the biblical correlation theory, also known as pyramidology, have finished their life cycles, and both of these correlation theories have been tossed into the ash heap of rejected ideas. Currently, the Orion correlation theory is in the stage of its life cycle where it is being faced by the event the other two correlation theories were faced with. This event is people are examining the research methods used by the Orion correlation theory to see how these made up correlations are supposedly validated. Just like with the other two correlation theories mentioned in this video, people are realizing that the fatal flaw of the Orion correlation theory is the unacceptable research methods used to make up these fake correlations without causation. The authors and proponents of the Orion correlation theory are intractable in using poor research methods to come up with correlations without causation, and are intractable in rejecting these fake correlations without causation derived using invalid research techniques. Therefore, the Orion correlation theory is being faced with the event that dooms all correlation theories. This event is people examining and then rejecting the Orion correlation theory based on its flawed research methods. For those still watching, I have two books that I've written and produced two documentaries about the Great Pyramid. My first book is titled Lost Technologies of the Great Pyramid, and it is about how the Great Pyramid was built using water locks and barges. It is available in softcover or Kindle ebook format. My first documentary is also about how the Great Pyramid was assembled. Both of these items are excellent standalone products, providing a wealth of information, but they do complement each other. I suggest you become familiar with both. The links for these items are on the screen. My second book is titled The Great Pyramid Prosperity Machine. It is about how the Great Pyramid functioned as a water pumping system. Just like my first book, my second book is also available in softcover or Kindle ebook format. My second documentary is titled The Great Pyramid Water Pump. Using many computer-generated animations, it also describes how the Great Pyramid operated as a water pump providing prosperity for the people who built it. My second book and second documentary are on the same subject, but both complement each other and provide a rich and detailed explanation of the operation of the Great Pyramid water pump and so much more. I have been interviewed on many radio talk shows, which are available as podcasts. I can be reached by email through our website at www.thepump.org. Thank you for watching to learn why the Orion correlation theory will decline and fall. Please watch our other videos on our YouTube channel. Thank you, Harley, for the help, and I thank everyone for watching.